Hello and welcome to RMIT's Digital Outreach Project with a focus on sustainability. My name is Ben McMenamin, and over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to be talking about sustainability. So, a bit of an overview about today's workshop. First of all, we're going to talk about sustainability and ask the question, what is sustainability? What does it mean and why is it important? Then we've selected 3 things that we feel best demonstrates sustainability. So first of all, the triple bottom line, which is a key way of defining what sustainability is. Then we're going to talk about the 4 R's, reduce, recycle, reuse and redesign, which is one of the great success stories of sustainability. And then we're going to talk about greenwashing, which is a trick that companies use to make themselves look sustainable when they might not actually be. Then we're going to do a group activity called Your Opinion, which will get all of you guys up off your feet and moving around thinking about your own values in relation to sustainability. And then finally, we'll finish off with a story about Easter Island. Alright, let's get into it. So what is sustainability? What is this thing? So first of all, sustainability is everywhere. Sustainability means having healthy water, healthy air to breathe, having houses, having a good job. It means earning enough money to be financially secure. Sustainability is in all industries and it impacts us all. Sustainability is emerging. And by that I mean that sustainability is a new and exciting industry that is creating lots of new jobs. So as you may know, jobs moving forward are not quite as secure as what they once were. All sorts of innovations around technology, automation, robotics, they're making some of the older jobs redundant. Where certain industries, such as sustainability, are in fact growing. And so if you're thinking about what sort of job you want to do in the future, then sustainability is a really great space to get into. And then finally, sustainability is important. Sustainability is about balancing the needs of now and the needs of the future. It's about creating a world that everyone has a fair go and that we can create a lifestyle and a planet that we can continue living on, not just in the next 50 or 100 years, but for thousands more years to come. So, sustainability, there's a lot of different things that encompass the concept of sustainability. So here are some of the words that I always think about. Intergenerational equality. That's at the core of sustainability, is thinking, how can we meet the needs of the present as well as meeting the needs of future generations? Sustainability is about having a strong economy. Now, often people, when they say sustainability, they just think about the environment, the natural environment. And while, yes, that is very important, it's also important to think about strong economies. Because with strong economies come better conditions for living and stronger communities, social standards. Sustainability is about making sure that there's enough for everyone. So no matter where you live in the world, no matter what background you've come from, that everyone has enough to live and to thrive in their communities. And of course, sustainability is about having a healthy environment, making sure that we've got clean air, clean water, clean food, and we've got habitat for all of our wonderful different forms of life to have a place to live and to be part of this amazing system. Sustainability is about endurance. It's about moving forward into the future in a way that's strong and confident and looking after each other. And sustainability is about social justice. That means that we're making sure that no matter where you're from within this world, that people are being looked after. That the people are not being discriminated against, and that everyone has an opportunity to do the things that make them happy. So as I mentioned before, sustainability is this new and emerging industry, which means that there's lots of exciting jobs that you can do in this space. I personally feel really privileged to be able to work in the sustainability space, and I get to work alongside some of the brightest and interesting people working on really innovative projects. So what sort of jobs are out there if you're interested in sustainability? Let's have a look. So you might be interested in becoming an urban planner. Now, an urban planner is a person that thinks about how cities are made up. Where do we put the people for housing? Where do we put our schools? How do we connect all of these things together with public transport? What is it that we need in a city to make sure that we're happy and healthy? An urban planner wrestles with all of those different ideas. A sustainability officer is a good job that you can get. So I actually worked as a sustainability officer for about a year and really loved it. And what that job entailed was going out into the community, talking to people, trying to understand what they need, and then developing projects or programs that help deliver on those needs. I was working with people around food and urban agriculture, where people can grow their own food at home and connect with others through community gardens. You might want to be a change activist. Now, this is someone who works in a non-government organization who, for example, World Vision or Red Cross or Friends of the Earth, who's fighting for a better way of doing things. They might be advocating for a particular type of technology, such as renewable energies, to try to encourage people to think more about these sorts of things. You might be interested in being an environmental engineer. So this is a person who will develop new and exciting technologies to reduce our impact on the natural environment and to increase our way of life, our well-being within this world. So, for example, an environmental engineer might work on solar panels or wind farm, developing new and exciting ways to generate electricity. So what are some of the outcomes that we're looking for, or the objectives that we're thinking about when we're engaging with sustainability? So we're thinking about ethical consumerism. Of course, we're all people. We all need to eat and drink and wear clothes. So how can we do those things in a way that's ethical and that is good for people and good for the planet? It's about building resilient communities. So that means if a natural disaster, for example, does happen, if a flood or a drought happens, then we're in a position that is strong, that we can bounce back from those natural disasters. It's about having beneficial technology, introducing things into our lives that make our lives better and easier, but also having less impact on the environment. And it's about increased well-being. This is stepping away from just saying, oh, I need X amount of dollars in order to be happy, but it's saying, what do I really need? I need to be connected to other people. I need to have access to certain amenities. And so sustainability encompasses all of those things. Now, I can understand if you're feeling a little bit blown away by all of those different ideas. So let me boil it down for you. One way that you can define sustainability is through something called the triple bottom line. Now what that says is that in order to be sustainable, we need three things. We need healthy environment, healthy society, and a strong economy. And when all three of these things are in balance, then we get sustainability. When you have a business that, for example, has a really good, strong financial or economic base, and is employing people so it's doing good for society, but is damaging to the environment, then that is not sustainable. Likewise, if you're an organization and you're doing really great things for the environment and you're contributing to a really good, healthy society, but you don't have financial or economic sustainability, then over time that business is likely to eventually fail as well. So when we're thinking about sustainability, it's really important to think that all of these three things need to be in balance together. There's another way that you can think about sustainability, which looks a little bit more like this. Now this is saying that the environment, the natural world and the planet that we live on is the thing that holds all of us together. If you think about it, without clean air, without clean water, without land to grow food on, then society would not exist and the economy could not exist. So likewise, without society, without people, the economy could not exist. So that's just another way that you can think about sustainability and what we need to be thinking about and making sure that we're paying attention to. Alright, so let's move on to, like I said, one of the success stories of sustainability, which is the 4 R's: reduce, recycle, reuse, and redesign. So, reduce is all about asking the question, should I be buying this thing? Do I really need that 5th pair of black jeans if I already have 4 in the cupboard? In this understanding, you must know that everything that you purchase has some impact. Everything comes from some kind of resource, natural resource. And so when you reduce the amount of things that you buy, then you can reduce your impact and become more sustainable. But of course, we must purchase certain things to get through our lives. So recycling comes in and asks the question, what should I do when I'm finished with this thing? Now, recycling is when you take a product that's at the end of its life, you put it through a process, and then it turns it into something else. For example, if I have a plastic bottle that I've used for drinking water, then I might put it through a process along with another 1,000 plastic bottles, and it gets turned into a park bench, let's say. Now, the thing to remember about recycling is that you still need to add resources and energy in order to turn it into something else. So it still requires some input. So that's when reuse comes into the picture. Now, reuse is asking, can I use this thing for anything else? So in the case of that plastic water bottle, instead of putting it in the recycling, if you just simply use that as your water bottle, then it means that it doesn't have to go through that process with all of those extra inputs, the energy and the resources to turn into something else. So reuse is in fact better than recycling. Then on top of that, there's a new kid on the block, which is redesign. Now this is about buying things that are designed to last. Now I want to ask you guys a quick question. Put your hands up if you have a phone, a mobile phone, that's older than 2 years. Now I can only imagine that less than half of you have put up your hand. More commonly now, people exchange their phones in every 1 or 2 years. When I got my first phone, which was the Nokia, I had that phone for 5 years. So it's not that we don't know how to make phones that are designed to last, but for some reason we have this technology and these things that become obsolete so that it encourages us to purchase more frequently and get the new and exciting thing. Just like with everything else, when you buy new things, there's a lot of energy and a lot of resources that go into creating that thing. So if you can think about how we redesign things so that if they are to last 5 years, we only need to buy it once every 5 years, we can not only save money for ourselves, but we can save the resources that go into making that thing. There's lots of really exciting things that are happening in the redesign space. To keep using the mobile phone example, there's a phone that's being developed currently that allows you to simply take away the piece that has become broken or obsolete. So if your battery breaks down, then instead of throwing away the whole phone, you just get the battery replaced. If your camera gets broken, or if you want to get a better camera, then you can simply take off that piece and replace it with another one. You know, in the knowledge that your phone screen, the computer inside, and a lot of the hardware is still perfectly fine, then you just replace the pieces that you need. So, as I mentioned before, recycling is one of the success stories of sustainability. We've got reasonably good recycling systems in Australia. We separate out our plastics and our paper and our glass, for example. But often it's difficult to know exactly what can and cannot be recycled. So, I want to test you guys and give you a bit of a quiz. Alright, so this is the way it works. I'm going to put an image up on the screen, for example, can of baked beans. I want you to put your hand up if you think that this can be recycled. Okay, and put your hands up if you think it cannot be recycled. And of course, it can be recycled. Put it into the recycling bin and it can be turned into something else. Alright, let's try something a little bit more difficult. A light bulb. So, put your hands up if you think yes, it can be recycled. And put your hands up if you think no, it cannot be recycled. The answer is no, it cannot be recycled. In a light bulb, there's a few different components, the filaments and the tiny bits of glass and metal, and some of those components cannot be recycled. So when it's all together, you can't put it in the recycling bin. Alright, next one. A 2-litre bottle of milk. Hands up if you think yes, it can be recycled. And hands up if you think no, it cannot be recycled. Of course, yes, the jug can be recycled, but you want to drink the milk first. Now, it's not just a silly thing to say. If you do have any food waste that goes into the recycling, so if there's a little bit of milk left in that jug, then it can in fact contaminate the rest of the recycling, and it means that they have to throw out the whole thing. So if you've got any leftovers, any leftover milk or baked beans or anything like that in the can, then make sure you wash it out before you put it in the recycling bin. Alright, next one. Coffee cup. Hands up if you think yes, it can be recycled. And hands up if you think no, it cannot be recycled. And the answer is yes, it most commonly can be recycled. But this is a bit of a trick question because some of them can't. These days, 9 out of 10 times, the lid can be recycled. It often has the little recycling symbol on the top. But often the paper cup, it has a thin layer of plastic on the inside that helps to insulate and protect the paper. And because those can't be separated, that cup cannot be recycled. Best way to tell is just to have a look on the underside of the cup and you'll be able to see if it can or cannot be recycled. Alright, lucky last. Christmas wrapping paper. So hands up for yes, it can be recycled. And hands up for no, cannot. And the answer is no. This type of wrapping paper, which has that really glossy, shiny finish, most of the time cannot be recycled. And that is because it has a thin layer of plastic that covers the outside, and because you can't separate that from the paper, then the whole thing needs to go in the general bin. Of course, you can buy very good recyclable wrapping paper, which we recommend that you do. So how many of those did you get right? More or less than you first thought? So recycling can be a little bit tricky sometimes. So what I recommend that you do is head online, simply Google recycling information or recycling tips, and you'll be able to see a whole bunch of resources that you can use to know what can and cannot be recycled. At home I've got a one which is just a whole bunch of images, and I stick it on my fridge, and then whenever I need to throw things out, then I can see exactly where to put it. Alright, so let's move on to this idea of greenwashing. So as I mentioned earlier, greenwashing is a tool that's used by companies to look environmentally beneficial or green when they may or may not be. So the benefit for you guys in knowing when a company is trying to trick you is that you'll be able to ascertain if these guys are actually doing what they're saying. And in this world where there's a lot of advertising and a lot of campaigns going around, then it's really important to understand what it is that you're buying and the impact that that purchase is having. So big companies have obviously worked out that if they make themselves look sustainable, then they have access to a larger proportion of the market because people are becoming more conscious about what they're buying. So the way that this activity is going to work is that I'm going to put up 2 videos that are examples of greenwashing. I want you to get out a pen and paper and to write down some notes. Think about what are the tools, what are the tricks that these guys are using to make you think that they are doing something sustainable. We'll watch the first one and I'll go over a couple of points, and then you can take a few minutes to write down some of your own ideas and then share it back with the class. Alright, are you ready for the first one? Here we go.
I believe in the future.
In the future.
I believe in protecting the environment.
I believe in energy independence.
I believe that meeting a challenge
Brings out the best in us. I believe
we can use American energy resources.
I believe we can limit greenhouse gases.
we will do this.
I believe in technology. I believe.
We will do this. I believe we will do this.
With new technologies, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and keep energy costs affordable.
We will do this.
We will do this.
I believe. I believe in American ingenuity. I believe we can do it.
I believe it can happen. I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
We can be energy independent. We can continue to use our most abundant fuel cleanly and responsibly. We can, we will. Clean coal, America's power.
Okay, so there was a pretty classic example of using greenwashing to make themselves seem sustainable. They're talking about using coal to generate electricity, and it's commonly known that this is a form of electricity generation that is quite polluting. So what are some of the tricks that they're using? A couple of the ones that I picked up on. They kept on using the same term over and over again. I believe. I believe. This makes me believe what it is that they're saying. By repeating the same thing over and over, then we're more likely to agree with what they're saying. One other thing that they used in this video was that they had a wide range of different types of people in the video. So they had some teachers, they had a doctor, they had a person working in an industrial role. And that means that no matter who is watching that video, they'll be able to see someone that reminds them of themselves. If you're a doctor and you're watching that, and you see another doctor giving you advice, then you're more likely to agree with what they're saying. Alright, so now I want you to take a couple of minutes to write down some of the words that, or some of the techniques that this video was using to make them seem more sustainable and build trust with you. Once you've done that, spend a couple of minutes sharing your ideas with the people around you. Alright, let's move on to the next video.
I love being able to solve problems and trying to come up with a solution. At the start of my mining career, I actually worked underground for several years, and during that time I drove pretty much every bit of gear. Hi, I'm Raylene and this is my story. I was always going to be an engineer.
She's been doing it for quite some time. She started off as a mining engineer and worked her way up through the company.
I guess I've always loved efficiency. I'm going to Japan. We're going to go and have a look at this low emissions technologies using our coal.
Australian coal is very high energy, so it improves their efficiencies at the power station and lowers emissions.
What you see in Tokyo is a huge amount of people in a very small space. The city, as far as you can see, population of Australia just out of this window. It's vast.
There's over 1,000 high-efficiency power stations being built or designed around the world.
効率の石炭火力発電所によって CO2 排出量を削減している。40% から 45% まで効率が上がっております。
Globally, there's billions of people who are going to need a lot more power, but at the same time, reducing emissions. That's a big challenge that Australian coal can be part of. I'd like to be part of that.
Alright, so now I want you to spend a couple of minutes thinking about what are the tools and tricks that they use in that particular video to make themselves seem sustainable. Once you've done that, I want you to have a group discussion with everyone around you and share some of the ideas that you picked up on. Okay, so now it's your turn to get up and to share your perspective or your values with the rest of the group. So the way this activity works, as you can see on the left-hand side of the room, you can see a sign that says strongly agree. On the right-hand side of the room, you have a sign that says strongly disagree. I'm going to put a statement up on the board. If you agree with that statement, I want you to get up and move to the left-hand side. If you disagree, move to the right-hand side. If you're somewhere in between, then you can stand in the middle. Now, the important thing to remember about this activity is that it's just your perspective. There's no such thing as a right or wrong answer, but what we do ask is that you are able to think about why you feel this particular way. So we're going to put it up on the board, then the teacher's going to go around and is going to ask a few people to share their perspective with the group. Alright, so question number 1 is, Australia should focus on the economy, the environment should come second. Strongly agree to the left, strongly disagree to the right. Alright, and question number 2. I can help to stop climate change. Strongly agree to the left, strongly agree to the right. Okay, and last and final question. The government should make people be more sustainable through fines and taxes. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. All right, and so we want to finish off with a story about Easter Island. So Easter Island is a small island in the Pacific Ocean. Around about the year 500 AD, a small group of Polynesian travelers came across the island. What they found was this tropical paradise. The island was filled with beautiful, rich trees. The oceans were packed full of fish and other sea life, and there were lots of animals and wildlife around. The Polynesians thought, hey, this looks like a pretty good place for us to set up shop. So they decided to live there and to build a community there. Over time, they decided to chop down some trees to build huts and houses. They built boats and went fishing in the ocean. They started to farm the land and to hunt for food on the island. As you can imagine, over time, their population increased and increased, and they started to develop a thriving community of Easter Islanders. Now, one of the outcomes from this thriving community were these amazing pieces of art, these giant stone statues. Now, these statues at that time would have been incredibly difficult to make without the modern technology. So it's a real testament to how socially and culturally advanced the Easter Islanders were at that time. Now, fast forward all the way to around the year 1770. Captain James Cook was travelling around in the region, and he came across Easter Island. But what he found was a very different scenario to the one I just described. What he found was just a few hundred Easter Islanders that were all starving. The island was absolutely bare of trees. There was no more wildlife and there was no more fish. Now, for Captain James Cook, this wasn't an unusual scenario. He had been travelling in the area and he had seen other poor communities like this. But what he had never seen were these giant stone statues. So And for the life of him, he couldn't work out how this poor community, with very little demonstration of a culture or a society, could have created such amazing pieces of art. So he went back home, and over years and years, they worked out what happened on Easter Island. Now, what they found out is that the Easter Islanders had continued to cut down trees, had continued to build boats and huts, had fished and hunted until all of the natural systems on the island started to break down. They took too much fish from the ocean, and so that they couldn't reproduce. Same thing happened with the trees. And after a time, the island experienced an ecological collapse, in saying that it was unable to reproduce life in an ongoing way. After that environmental collapse, the Easter Islanders also experienced a social collapse, and their population declined. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because a lot of people have drawn a comparison between Easter Island and the rest of the world. And what they say is that just how like Easter Island is a small island isolated in the middle of the ocean, so too is the planet Earth, a small planet isolated in the middle of space. And if we don't think about how we are using our resources, then eventually we too may experience an ecological collapse and then a social collapse. So wrapping up now, what is sustainability? Sustainability is everywhere. It doesn't matter what you do or where you go, you can see sustainability playing out all over the place. Sustainability is emerging, and as I've been speaking about, it touches on lots of different industries. I feel really privileged to have a job working in the sustainability space, and I really encourage anyone else who's interested in this sort of thing to look into what job opportunities might be suitable for you. I think one of the best things about sustainability is that you can be interested in anything, whether it's mechanics, whether it's education, whether it's engaging with people, whether it's IT. All of these things need to be considering and embedding sustainability. And then finally, sustainability is important. It's about weighing up the needs of the now against the needs of the future and making these really important decisions about how we are going to live as a human race. People often ask me, why do I do sustainability? And the answer that I give is because I want to make the world a better place. I can imagine myself when I'm old and wrinkly sitting on my porch, and my grandkids come up to me and they say, "Granddad, you were alive when you could have made the world a better place. What did you do?" And I want to be able to turn around to them and say, I was proud to be working in the sustainability space to contribute to a better world. So I want to leave you with one last question. And that is, how will you make the world a better place? Thank you very much for your time.